All right, thanks for tuning in. A lot of questions that I've gotten on social media about two outstanding pass rushers, two of the tops in the game who remain out there. And I guess it's a compliment to John Lynch and this current state of the 49ers regime that anytime a big name guy, a top flight guy becomes available, people want to know, are the 49ers interested? And so we're going to talk a little bit about TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson. But first off, the reason I say that, maybe it's to be taken as a compliment to John Lynch and the 49ers that their name is constantly linked to some of the top guys who are either available in trades or on the free agent market. And with John Lynch, before his arrival, the 49ers had made just one in-season trade in the previous 11 years. And then since John Lynch has come to the 49ers as the general manager, 49ers have made a lot of trades. And, kind of in a similar vein is that I don't know what it is, but it's almost as if former players, when put into the general manager role, are just a lot more aggressive. And we see it here in the Bay Area. Mike Dunleavy with the Warriors trades for Jimmy Butler middle of the season. Buster Posey recently with the Giants trades for Rafael Devers. And then in John Lynch's time with the 49ers, like I said, a lot of deals, starting with Jimmy Garoppolo and Emmanuel Sanders, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Young, which remember Chase Young at the time, that was considered a really big deal. It didn't quite work out that way, although he did play well in the Super Bowl. And then more recently, Bryce Huff, the 49ers acquire him in a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles, but also other trades, Charles Omenihu, Jordan Willis, Khalil Davis, Randy Gregory. So I bring all this up because there is talk with these two guys, these two top flight NFC North pass rushers going through contract situations with their respective teams. Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals, TJ Watt with the Steelers. Those guys potentially could be available. So, how realistic is it? Not very. Both of those players are 30 years old. And as I mentioned, with Trey Hendrickson, 17 and a half sacks over the past two seasons. He's set to make $16 million in this, the final year of his contract. With TJ Watt, he's also 30 years old. He had 19 sacks in 2023, 11 and a half sacks last year, and he's set to make 21 million this season. And his contract, when he signed it, averaged 28 million, and this year also the last year of his contract. So when you look at any team that would be willing to trade for those guys, and my thought would be obviously the Bengals want to get something done with Hendrickson, the Steelers want to get something done with TJ Watt, but it might be that they're just not in a position where they can pay those guys at the top of the market. And I would assume when you look at Myles Garrett making $40 million a year, signed through the 2030 season, that those two players, Hendrickson and Watt, would be looking at something right there in that range. So the reason I don't see it working for the 49ers is not because of necessarily the trade compensation that it would cost a team to acquire either of those players. It's just frankly the dollar amount. Nick Bosa, at one time, was the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. Now he's fourth, a couple years out from signing that contract. He's fourth in the NFL at the edge rusher position, making $34 million a year. He's signed through 2028. And if you look at teams around the league who have one highly paid edge rusher, they usually can't add another. The 49ers did, though, in a sense. Now, when you look at the top edge rushers in the league, with Bosa being number four, the 49ers also have another player in the top 17. And it might surprise you to find out that it's Bryce Huff. So the contract he signed last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, 3 years, $51.1 million. That's $17 million a year. That places him 17th on the list. So the 49ers have two of the top 17 paid edge rushers in the league. Now, where this makes sense for the 49ers is that Huff is scheduled to make only $8 million, 7.95 million from the 49ers this year because the Eagles decided to pick up a good chunk of that salary. So the reason that trade was executed after June 1 is so that the Eagles could spread out the remaining money over 2 years on their salary cap. So he makes or he counts in dead money 4.9 million against the Eagles cap this year, and then next year that number jumps to 16.6 million on the Eagles cap, all dead money. So 16.6 million of their salary cap will be taken up by a player no longer on the team by a full year. So the 49ers edge rusher position, this again, I don't see the 49ers making a move for TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson. I just don't think it's at all realistic. Even though I'm sure that, maybe there was some conversation behind the closed doors. Is it worth it? Could we do it? And probably the answer comes back a resounding no, quite immediately. But when you look at the 49ers edge rusher position, and I do think that the defensive line is nowhere near what it was, a couple of years ago. Um, their top edge rushers are Nick Bosa, Bryce Huff, Yetur Gross-Matos, the first round draft pick, Michael Williams. So there's four right there. And then also Sam Okwanu and Robert Beal competing for spots on the 53-man roster. But part of the reason why I don't anticipate the 49ers even being close to being a player for either one of those is just because of the money they have tied up in so many other high-priced players. When you look at Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and even Diamondor Lenore. Those guys, and it's not so much the money that's being accounted for the cap right now, it's the money that has yet to be accounted for on the salary cap. So that the price tag rises. Put it this way. Let's look at the 49ers contracts and why it's not necessarily where they are on the cap now. They're comfortably under the cap, but for future seasons, just like how Debo Samuel counts $31 million against the cap this year, a lot of the expenses for these guys are pushed out to the future. So Brock Purdy, which is the easy one, I mean, they just signed him to a new contract. He's making $53 million a year. That's the average, but there's $100 million that's unaccounted for on the cap as of right now. So that's money all in the future that'll have to be accounted for on the salary cap. For Nick Bosa, his contract is $34 million per year, but yet there's $96 million out there that's already been paid out for and already been that's on the books, but hasn't been accounted for on the cap. For Brandon Ayuk, his deal is $30 million a year, but there's $67 million lingering out there. With Trent Williams, it's $27.5 million per year. That's the average salary that he makes. But he has $53 million hanging out there. For George Kittle, he has $56 million hanging out there. And this is a guy that's making 19.1 million per year. And then with Fred Warner, a lot more manageable. He signed a deal that averages 21 million per year, but he has 30 million kind of lingering out there. And for Christian McCaffrey, 19 million a year for him, but 28 million is kind of hanging in the balance. So when we talk about the 49ers salary cap situation, it's not so much about what their situation is right now. It's about what the situation is for the future. And so by kind of biting the bullet on Debo Samuel's contract, trading him to the Washington Commanders, and absorbing $31 million in dead money this year, while it might hurt them, the immediate pain of that, of having that much money accounted for on the cap, the 49ers are still comfortably under the salary cap for this year. And then the good news for them is they wipe that money off of their books for the future. So that is the quick and easy reasons why I do not expect the 49ers to at all be players for TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson, although it might be fun to talk about, and I'm sure the 49ers have at least mentioned the possibility. They say that they talk about every possible scenario that that comes on their radar, and those would certainly be two instances. But I do see teams and a lot of teams in the NFC that if having the opportunity for a TJ Watt or a Trey Hendrickson. Those teams, I think, have the wherewithal and could make those moves. And that includes a lot of teams that the 49ers conceivably are going to be in competition with in the NFC this year. That means the Philadelphia Eagles, the Detroit Lions, the Washington Commanders, who have been aggressive in their own right under general manager Adam Peters. Seattle could be in play for either one of those players as well. So a lot of teams in the NFC, I think, feel like the door is open to make a move, and one of those players could, in the minds of those teams, help push them over the top. But again, I just don't see it being the San Francisco 49ers as one of those teams that would really even be under serious consideration to land a top edge rusher in the league. I think by and large, their roster is set. Yes, I could see them adding a backup caliber cornerback, a backup caliber, and we're talking about the contract situation. I could see them adding, let's put it this way, a cornerback for backup money, a safety for backup money, but I don't at this point see them adding any significant big name player with a big contract who can step in and be a week one starter. So thanks for tuning in. And that is it for now.